In October 2008, 4 13-year-old girls and one 12-year-old girl, Jessica Wilkins, were having a sleepover in the basement of Emily's home. Her parents had been out drinking and were asleep upstairs while the girls slumbered below. After watching some scary movies, the girls decided to play a game. Each lit up a black candle, formed a circle around a full-length floor mirror, and stood back to back. They then took turns chanting "Show me the truth" into the mirror. The first rule of the game was not to turn around or look in the mirror until each person had finished chanting. The second rule was to blow out the candles when the chant was over. And the third and final rule was to trust that everyone chanting was still back to back and still holding their candles. As the friends began their creepy game, they giggled nervously. But then something incredible happened. When it was Emily's turn to chant, she looked back at her friend, Jessica. Only seconds before, Jessica had been back to back with Emily, but now she was facing the opposite direction. Emily called out to Jessica, but the girl didn't respond. Instead, she slowly turned towards the mirror and stared straight ahead. Her face was white with fear. Emily's older sister, Lindsay, was upstairs playing video games when she heard someone call her name. She assumed it was one of her friends, but then she heard footsteps coming down the stairs. Assuming it was just her little sister coming to use the bathroom, Lindsay went back to playing her video game. When she finally came downstairs, it was 3:30 a.m. Her father was also downstairs by this time, and he told her that the girls should be quiet so he could sleep. However, Lindsay noted that all the candles were blown out and the girls were nowhere to be seen. At first, Lindsay thought that maybe her father had simply imagined the noise. He had a habit of hearing things. But then she remembered that the girls had gone to the basement to watch scary movies and have a sleepover. She rushed down the stairs, 2 at a time, and burst into the basement. The room was dark, except for a small beam of moonlight that shone through the window. In the center of the floor was a circle of 5 extinguished candles. The girls weren't in the basement, but Lindsay quickly spotted one of Emily's sandals lying in the middle of the room. Then she saw it, a single bloody handprint on the wall next to the mirror. It was a perfect imprint of a hand with long, sharp claws. The girls' backpacks were on the floor where they had left them, along with their phones and other belongings. But they were nowhere to be seen. Frightened, Lindsay ran upstairs to wake her parents and call 911. When the police arrived, they found the basement window open. A single black feather lay on the sill. A massive search effort was launched involving dozens of officers, cadaver dogs, helicopters, and even divers. But there was no sign of the girls. Over the next several hours, more bloody handprints were discovered on walls throughout the house. In total, police found 7. 5 belonged to Jessica and 2 to Emily. But how had they made the markings? They hadn't exactly been cooperative during the investigation, but eventually they gave in and told the police what had happened. They explained the game they had been playing when suddenly Jessica had turned around to face the mirror. As she did, the candle flame turned blue and the stench of rotting meat filled the air. The girls panicked and tried to extinguish their candles, but they wouldn't go out. Instead, the flames grew larger and brighter, seeming to suck away the oxygen in the room. Then Jessica started speaking in a strange voice. She said, "You want the truth. Here's the truth." She pointed at Emily and continued, "She's the one you should be afraid of." Jessica then lunged at Emily, but the girl blocked her attack. Fearing for her life, Emily blew out her candle and turned to run, but Jessica grabbed her and forced her back. "Don't you want to know the truth?" Jessica asked sinisterly. "No," Emily screamed. She scratched at Jessica, but her friend didn't even flinch. "She wants the truth," Jessica said to the others. "But you don't. Do you want the truth? Well, I'll give it to you anyway." Jessica advanced on the girls, but suddenly stopped. Her eyes rolled back and she fell to the floor. The other girls blew out their candles and fled. When the police searched the house, they found Jessica's body in the basement. The only clue as to what had happened was a bloody footprint on the floor, matching the handprint found near the mirror. What had compelled Jessica to attack her friends? And where was Emily? The police had more questions than answers. In the days that followed, the other girls claimed they hadn't seen Emily since the incident, but they too had strange things happening to them. One woke up in the middle of the night with the feeling that she was being watched. Another saw what looked like bloody handprints on her bedroom wall. All the girls agreed that they would never play that game again, and none of them wanted to spend another sleepover in a dark room with a candle. But what the police didn't know was that Jessica's attack on her friend was only the beginning. In the months following Jessica's death, similar attacks were reported across the state. Girls who had been playing the candle game with their friends were later found dead, their bodies bearing strange markings. But the police couldn't connect the cases because every girl had a different story about what happened. They all spoke of a creature that attacked them in the night, but none of them could agree on what it looked like. It wasn't until a year after the Wilkins case that the similarities between the attacks became clear. In October 2009, 3 girls, Courtney, Ashley, and Brittany, were having a sleepover when they decided to play the candle game. They followed the same rules as Emily and her friends. They lit their candles, stood back to back, and began chanting, "Show me the truth." Courtney was the last to chant, and when she turned to face the mirror, she saw her 2 friends standing back to back, just as they had been before. But their faces were pale and contorted with terror. When Courtney turned back to face them, the girls lunged forward and screamed, "Don't look away." Courtney turned back to the mirror, but the image that stared back at her wasn't her own. It was an emaciated, hairless woman with long, clawed hands. She wore a dress made of what looked like human skin. Screaming, Courtney stumbled back. The 3 friends panicked and scattered, blowing out their candles. Courtney hid under her bed and peeked out. Her friends were gone, but she could hear scratching sounds coming from the closet. Terrified, she climbed out of her bedroom window and spent the night hiding in her backyard. When she finally returned home, she found a bloodied meat cleaver on her pillow, and the walls around her bed were covered with bloody handprints. Her friends were missing. The police were able to link this case to the Wilkins case and several others. All the girls had experienced the same terrifying events. But what was the truth? What was the identity of the creature in the mirror? And why did it only attack girls? Years passed without answers, but the girls who survived the encounter never forgot. They still jump at the sound of scratching. They refuse to stay in a room alone in the dark, and they will never play the candle game again. In 2016, one of Courtney's friends decided to put the legend to rest once and for all. She invited Courtney and Brittany to her home, and the 3 friends decided to recreate the horror of that fateful night. They dimmed the lights and lit 3 black candles. Then they stood in a circle around a floor mirror and faced each other back to back. "Show me the truth," they chanted, trying to ignore the goosebumps that erupted all over their arms. Suddenly, the candle flame turned blue. The temperature in the room dropped dramatically, and a horrible smell like rotting flesh filled their nostrils. Then Brittany felt something wet and slimy brush against her leg. She screamed and spun around, knocking over her candle. The room plunged into darkness as the girls panicked and ran for the door. One of them tripped, sending the other crashing to the floor. When the girls finally regained their composure and returned to the room, they found something that made their blood run cold. In front of the mirror was a single bloodied handprint, just like the ones that had appeared after the attacks years before. But that wasn't the only thing. On the floor in front of them was a tiny black feather. Is this truly the work of a demon? Or is there a more earthly explanation? Let me know what you think in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more videos like these. Thanks for watching.